Welcome to Landwards, the podcast for the land-based engineering community, brought to you by the Institution of Agricultural Engineers.
Welcome to the Landwards podcast, and today's recording, I'd like to have said tonight's recording, but I can't really, and all become clear in a moment. Today's recording and tomorrow's recording simultaneously is a special brought to you by 5 industry colleagues who met and got together at Agritechnica at the start of November. It's a little bit overdue, but I'm your host, Andy Newbold, editor of Landwards magazine, and I am joined by, and I will point at Charlie now.
Hello, Charlie Nicklin. So I'm the Chief Executive of Institute of Agricultural Engineers.
Chris Smith.
Hi, I'm Chris Smith. I'm Technology Manager at the Foundation for Arable Research in New Zealand. So it's morning time for me. We're a levy-based organisation looking after the cropping farmers of New Zealand. My sort of background is farming management, technology, and I immigrated to New Zealand from the UK in 2007.
Thank you, Chris. Harry Henderson.
Hello, Harry Henderson, Head of Education and Partnerships at BASIS. That's the organisation that looks after agronomists across the UK. We also look after the National Register of Sprayer Operators, NEROSO. So about 21,000 members within that, and we put the training course together for that and deliver it out to training providers and agronomists to deliver out to the membership. I've been in this role 2.5 years. Before that, I spent 10 years with AHDB, the levy funded research organisation for UK farmers. Spent 10 years in knowledge exchange with those guys and really got a feel for technology uptake and promoting new practices to farmers. And then before that, I was with John Deere for 8 years in dealer sales support with combine harvesters, precision farming equipment and crop sprayers.
Thank you, Harry. Kieran Walsh in the bottom left corner of your screen.
Hello, Kieran Walsh, independent agronomist and co-founder, director of Grounded Advice in the south of the UK, predominantly looking after the combinable farms and forage units, very much focusing on sort of end-to-end and future projects and sort of future proofing of farms going into the future.
Perfect, thank you, Kieran. And last but by no means least, and screeching in, his discovery is still pinking outside of possibly ticking over, he's left the keys in it, is Clive Blacker, all the way from the People's Republic of Yorkshire. Clive, introduce yourself and tell us what you're about. 2 minutes max.
Yeah. So I'm Clive Blacker. I'm part of Agrition Limited and AgAnalyst. I work in precision ag, trying to help farmers adopt technology, utilise technology, research it, and work with AgAnalysts to try and help the data solutions and give them the data support they need to get the best out of the information they collect.
Brilliant. Thank you, Clive. So the purpose of this recording is for us to give our reflection on the emerging themes in the wide global world of agricultural technology and innovation. So we're going to start first. I have got a very sort of brief agenda, but we're going to start with a bit of a round robin. And if you want to speak, stick your hand up or shout in as you wish. On what do we see as the emerging themes from Agritechnica, and actually for those of us who went to the LandTechnik conference, what's coming down the track? Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to jump in, Andy.
Far away.
As I'm on top of the screen on my screen anyway. If we start with the LandTechnik conference, which was 2 really, really good days. Awful lot of chat around sort of data and AI. You know, that word data doesn't seem to go away anytime soon, and I'm not sure half the companies actually know what it actually entails. But there's a lot of sort of software AI chats, and that seems to be a big focus, which I think quite a lot of people on this call would agree. And for me, Agritechnica, the level of huge equipment was a running theme, along with many more robots and soil sensing seemed to be everywhere. That was sort of my takeaway from the summarising the 2 days, the week really.
Yeah, I like to agree there. There was a lot of AI and machine learning I picked up on. There's a lot of big kit, like you say, but how relevant it is to different parts. Like for us, a lot of those big things like that Nexat, it's just, we're never going to get a Nexat here, but the technology we can use straight away. And I think that's where we'll get our bang from the buck, is actually sort of, rather than buying a bigger, flashier tractor, is actually utilising that technology and putting our inputs on a lot smarter with some of the data sort of technologies.
Yeah. Clive, what about for you?
Certainly, everyone that was anybody had a robot on their stand. Quite how whether some of them knew how to use it or not, I'm not entirely sure. And it wasn't clear how it integrated into other systems. So I think there's still a long way to go. There was definitely a move towards automation, definitely a move towards robotics, definitely a big shift in that sort of attention. Quite how practical it is, how common it is, I think people were just showing that they had the capability rather than it being a functional market tool at the minute. I think it's still got some way to go.
Charlie, what about for you?
Yeah, picking up on what Clive's saying, the autonomous thing to me is there is an element of marketing vanity, I always think, with Agritechnica, is that you have to be seen to have certain things on your stand. And that rang true with autonomous stuff. There was some stuff you just thought, really? But there was some, real genuine, solid autonomous solutions knocking about. And the other thing I always think with Agritechnica is, I've been lucky to go into that show for, probably the last 20 years. And I've also been to US machinery shows. And the size of equipment in Europe now, you could be walking around a US show. You've got 50, 60-foot combine headers. You've got massive 12-meter drills. The equipment is huge and it just knows no bounds. Kit just seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's very similar to the States now, I would suggest.
And simultaneously smarter, because once upon a time, we expected big in the States. And I must admit, the first time I went to a trade show in the States in about 1997 or 8, I came home massively disappointed because everything was really big, but it was quite dumb. And I think that moment's moved on. Harry, what do you reckon?
I've been going to Agritechnica for 10 years, I think. It's interesting to note that the autonomous stuff has migrated from being just something that looks like a flying bedstead with a scientist stood next to it, to a commercially available product with a salesman stood next to it, equipped with order book. So that moves everything on to the next challenge, is uptake and support and how it fares in the field and so on. So for me, that was very interesting. Yes, the technology is getting big, but I spent some time on the John Deere stand, and they've got their 45, 50-foot cut combine. And I spoke to one of the divisional sales managers from the UK, and I said, how many have you sold? And I think they said about 50 odd in the big X9 combines. But their worry is what happens to it when it's 5, 7, 10 years old. It's got 3,000 hours on it. Where's the second-hand market for it? Interesting times.
And I think one thing which, going back to the autonomy thing, numerous of the papers in the LandTechnik conference related to modelling efficiency gains, modelling implementation methodologies, ecosystems for managing autonomous vehicles, and so on and so forth, without giving specific papers. And likewise, when you trawled the halls of Agritechnica, as Harry says, you weren't anybody. I think maybe you said it, Charlie. You're not anybody as a mainstream European or international manufacturer if you haven't got an autonomous machine on your stand. But for several of those manufacturers, and I'll give you the example of Kuhn with Carl, Krohn and Lemkin with Combined Powers, to give you two. I firmly believe those manufacturers are effectively developing their own test beds to make sure that they have smart and safe machinery, because actually they're implement manufacturers. And it's, for those manufacturers named, and I appreciate Krohn have got engines in their self-propelled foragers and their big M mowers, but fundamentally, their core business is dedicated implements, and moving to something with wheels and an engine which drives itself is a game changer for them, other than it being a completely controlled mule for them to allow them to prove that their machines are autonomous ready. And certainly, Amazon have got money in Agseed, as have Class. And if you go and buy the new Class Axion, the big tracked half track, the top end one, which picked up the award, that has got, is it level 2 autonomy, and Agseed has got level 4 autonomy. Now, I'm not expert enough to know what the difference between level 2 and level 4 is, but I suspect level 2 is one step beyond pressing the steering wheel button on your tractor for it to use auto steer, whereas level 4 is walk away and leave it to it. Oh, that's my quick take. I don't know if anyone else has got a perspective on that.
I agree to a point. Implements have certainly got to get a lot smarter, and I think we forget what we want robots for, or the advantage that the robots will come with. Some of it will be an automation in terms of you can replace labour, but ultimately, I think where the big value add from autonomous and robotic systems will come is from the smart technology that's on the back of it that's going to deliver something in ways that we can't currently deliver, at a resolution we can't currently deliver, because everything's going 12 metres or larger. Yeah. You know, so it's those value adds and opportunities that I think are really important, because I think a lot of the robotic manufacturers don't understand that bit. They're too busy and excited developing something that's autonomous and not understanding what its use case is.
The application of the autonomy. Charlie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, there was a few good examples of that. And one of the things that struck with me, and I know Kieran and myself studied it for a good while, was on the Kuhn stand. What they showed on at the back of the Carl tractor was some of the clever tech they've got on their implements. And one of the things they had on there was a Bluetooth sensor on the tine. So if you lose a tine, you lose the pairing, and you know you've lost your tine. They also had cameras looking down for blockages, and they had a rotating sensor on the packer roller for the same reason. And I just thought, it's fantastic, and we've seen some of the examples of that on other equipment. But you just think, with that, to me, it struck with me that it doesn't matter that it's an autonomous tractor. Actually, that technology there is useful for any tractor, because if you're dragging a 40-foot cultivator across a field at 15 kph at night, you don't know you've lost your time until you get off.
And you're listening to ZZ Top, Charlie. And you're listening to ZZ Top, and you don't hear a difference in the note till you get to
really clever, neat technology that's usable on other stuff. It doesn't need to be autonomous to use that sort of stuff,
Kieran.
Yeah, I was just going to sort of chip in and sort of, just
got you, Chris.
Agree with what Charlie was saying. We spent a while sort of looking over it and sort of figuring out actually what they were doing. And as Charlie alluded to, that actually even without it being on the back of a robotic automated machine, it's even quite useful to have on a conventional tractor unit as it is now, because in the dark, as Andy said, even with an operator on the seat, if it's a drill tine that's broke, actually it'd be nice to know that has come off, and you can't see, these drills have got so complex and big, you can't always see to the back of them or underneath them. So having that technology, or even that packer sensor and the big tire pack on the back that you definitely can't see blocks up, it'd be just nice to know that's slowing down. Or with the bigger machinery, you can go a fair distance without blocked up pulling a lot of soil.
Yeah, because you've got the horsepower, so you don't actually notice it, do you?
Quite.
Chris?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, really. I was looking at the Krone Limkin, and they were sort of saying it's actually looking at the wear on the tine as well, how much is it left on the tine before you need to turn them over, etc. So you don't end up spending hours trying to remove bolts that have half worn out and things like that.
It's quite an interesting point as well, which Charlie made there, which is that whilst this tech is intended to enable a machine to be used autonomously, equally, that smart machine with that sensing integrated and coming up on your Isobus panel, you'd quite happily drive up and down the field as an operator, because it makes your job so much easier. And I think historically the challenge with autonomy has not been driving up and down the field. It's been replacing the eyes and ears and possibly the nose of the operator to go, oh, there's something wrong here. But actually, you could, as you say, you could drive up and down all day. For those of us who were at the LandTechnik conference, just give me a quick, maybe I'll start with you, Charlie. Give me a standout paper.
Yeah, the one that I liked the presentation the most was the CNH high density baler. Partly because it was a superb presentation, and some of the presentations you saw in Agritechnica in the LandTechnik conference lacked a bit, let's say. But the CNH one was superb, and that was to do with this they're making really high efficiency balers, and the challenge is the operator cannot keep that thing at capacity because they're always leaving a margin in case to stop it blocked. And they'd got this, they'd had this cruise system for a while where a LiDAR scanner looked at the density of the crop in front and adjusted the forward speed of the tractor and baler. And now they've gone another step further where they've got live streaming torque measurement on the baler. And that's coupled with a LiDAR scanning of the crop and adjusting the forward speed to keep the baler basically at full capacity. And then they're designing a hydraulic slip clutch to smooth off the peaks. And I thought it was really clever bit of engineering done, but it was very well presented. And then the other thing that I think we all quite liked was the air lubricated ploughing, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But there were two things that stood out to me that I really enjoyed.
I think seamlessly that leads to Kieran, because he'd already bagged that one as his when we had our pre-meeting. He'd already bagged that as his standout paper. So Kieran, I think over to you with air lube ploughing.
Well, I said that and another, but I said sort of. The air lube was when you said, I think we should go and listen to that. I was like, that doesn't really sound like that's my sort of thing, what I'm here to listen to. But actually, it turned out to be very good. But I think it was a very close run thing, Andy. But for me, for the reason I was there, yes, that was great. And I'm sure it's got legs of some sort. But it was the weed seed separation unit on the back of the combine.
Seed select.
That was my standout from the conference. Yeah.
Yeah, because as a piece of tech, it's not using a hammer to crack a nut, literally.
It's not using the hammer. And, I think they quoted between sort of 3 and 4% crop yield from that.
Yeah.
That was actually capturing everything that was, that was in theory.
It took about 5% of the combine's power rather than 25%, which is what a Redicop or equivalent. Other hammer mills are available. Took on the back of a combine, which is the experience of most people who've stuck a hammer mill on the back of a combine, is that they have to go back and get a fresh chip or update the combine.
And I think my role is to look at the fine details of efficiencies, and if it's going to give us those small percentages, then if we can do that on everything, then that's a good gain. And just rough maths, that could be between sort of 45 and 65 quid a hectare return on things that would initially been going over the back. So I'll take that any day.
Yeah, no, I thought it was good. The yield increase stat surprised me, because I just expected them to say, actually, using the Zern seed select means that we've got a proven method of separating out all the weed seeds and stuffing them somewhere else. Therefore, you haven't got a blackgrass problem. And of course, it's obvious when you think about it that if you haven't got blackgrass or equivalent seeds taking away resources and competing with your crop, you are going to get a yield increase.
If it's also capturing that seed burden of things we don't want there, i.e. blackgrass, brome, or ryegrass. If it can reduce that by 5%, then fantastic. Again, I'm sure Chris would probably take that as well for what he's looking at for farmers in New Zealand. Ryegrass seed. Ryegrass is a big problem for Chris, I'm sure, as well. So
yeah, it is absolutely. Yeah, the same thing as well. Yeah, we just can't justify having the hammer mills on our combines. Yeah. We haven't got the top class combines here, sort of the class 9s and 10s. You need something that big to be able to stick a hammer mill on it.
Yeah, because of the increase in power. Just going back to the standout air ploughing, the other great highlight of that particular presentation was 2 rows in front of Kieran and I was a young man called Klaus Pottinger. And he came down and sat down, and you could see after a few minutes he was thinking, I don't think we need to worry about this technology just yet. Because for those not in the know, the air lubricated ploughing was, as the name suggests, they drilled holes in the mould board, and the idea was that you pushed compressed air through the mould board to reduce the friction of the soil sliding over the plough board.
I think it was roughly 40%, Andy.
Yeah,
is that right?
40% draft reduction.
Yeah,
big numbers. Yeah,
but it was
significant manufacturing challenges to be able to do.
Conceptually brilliant.
Yeah, But if you think about it, people have been trying to reduce draft on things for years, and who remembers the McConnell shakerator?
Yeah.
And that was done by vibrating a tine to make it go through the soil easier. And you knew if you turned it off mid-run, you knew about it because you could feel the tractor pull down. So
in theory, then you're using draft to reduce your draft.
Yes.
Draft to reduce your draft.
We can rely on you, Clive.
Draft control in a different spin.
In that case, Clive, it would be brilliant.
Yeah, you would. Yeah. We'll just put you on it, Clive.
I've seen similar things used as propulsion.
Yeah. Again, moving on. Clive, would you like to discuss your standout paper from LandTechnik?
As I consider myself more agronomically focused than engineering, there was a couple of presentations that I was interested in. One around grass productivity and trying to get better grass quality by using remote sensing to optimize the harvesting, so you can harvest it at the right time and improve your logistics. That was quite interesting. And there was another one around predicting grain protein before harvest, so you could look at different opportunities to spatially harvest fields, so you could add the most value, particularly in organic situations for milling wheat.
And if, for instance, you had a 10-foot combine like us Cumbrians have, you could just nip in and pull a little bit of the field out as required, couldn't you? If you could start the combine.
If you can, or get your wraparound one.
Absolutely, I bear that in mind. I'd like to just dive in with this is a neat segue into the other theme of Agritechnica, which we haven't, and LandTechnik, but this standout paper for me was, and again, it was the CNH, and I'm going to give you a series of words which don't necessarily in your heads fit together till I explain it, the methane hybrid telehandler. And that was, again, the stats were startling. And 2 days later I went to a press launch to find that the methane hybrid telehandler was on the CNH stand as a product they're going to start making. But with using the hybrid part of the telehandler was literally battery storage and electric motors and so on and so forth, but it had a methane motor rather than a diesel motor. And they said, the carbon reduction with the methane motor was X percentage, but if you combine that with the battery pack and the electric power, it was like a 70% reduction in carbon footprint. It was quite startling. Did you sit on that one with me, Charlie?
Yeah. I'd sort of struggled to get excited about hybrid things because I just think you've got double the complexity.
Something else to go wrong, as my dad would say.
Either decide it's this or that. Don't do a hybrid version because it's just nuts. But the costs. I think there weren't a lot of costs mentioned. I asked a question about how does it compare cost-wise to the diesel, and it was phenomenally expensive. It was
40%, wasn't it?
1.8 times the cost, and then they said, but even in a production scenario, it would still be 1.4. So it's crackers, But there were some good stats there, but it's just the cost of these things, and obviously dualing up technology is not going to get your cost down.
No, it's not. You need to move to something else, which neatly leads into another theme of Agritechnica, which is the increasing use of hybrid transmissions, hybrid drives, battery electric, hydrogen, and so on and so forth. I just wondered, because we've got very excited about autonomy, but I just wondered what our panel's thoughts were around alternative fuels or carbon neutral or diesel alternatives. Who wants to fire away with that?
I'd love to start. I've got to mention Zoomlion or Zoomlion or however you want to pronounce it, because I don't know. I remember seeing some tractors from that company many years ago at Agritechnica, and they were pretty rough looking things. Yeah. But this, the fit and finish of them these days is incredible. But a lot of people have picked up on the EV transaxle that they've got on there. And some of the EV, the electrical drive on the combine, which we'll probably talk about. But I suppose what struck me is when I was talking to one of their chaps on their stand, he genuinely couldn't understand why Europe was so far behind on EV. And he was serious. He was saying, he kept saying, why do European manufacturers continue to stick with power shifts and mechanical transmissions? And they are absolutely adamant the future is electric.
But Charlie, I'd like to see one of them performing in Nebraska tests against a power shift transmission.
Yeah. They're running. The Russian sanctions have opened up Russia for them. So they're selling a lot of products into Russia. Brazil, they sell into, obviously,
India,
home markets as well.
They also said they got the hybrid combine in Australia.
China are very good at inflating things, but he seemed fairly genuine that they were shipping stuff to these markets. I don't know what quantities. You'd never get it out of them, I suppose, but and you'd have to see it to believe it, wouldn't you?
That's very true. They'll probably have an app for that, though, Charlie. I should think. So, any other thoughts on alternative fuels and things we saw at Agritechnica?
Well, I picked up a book from the KTLB. It's kind of a research organisation, government-funded research organisation from Germany. And they produced a book on the use of renewable drive energy in agricultural machinery. And it's got a chart here, and it's categorised machines, light work, yard work, loading, feeding, that sort of thing in the farmyard, intermediate work, fertilisation, spraying, light tillage, that sort of thing, and heavy work, ploughing, harvesting, forage harvesting, and so on. Then it's got down the side, it's got the different sources of power: battery, vegetable oil, biodiesel, HVO diesel, FT diesel, hydrogen, and liquid nitrogen gas. And it's interesting that their thinking is that there's a lot of scope for battery power within your telehandlers and your light work, your loaders, that sort of thing. And then intermediate, it kind of tends to focus then on biodiesel up to heavy work, and then highway diesel is still the future from 2030 to 2045 in combine harvesters as a power source. How that power is distributed around the machine is probably yet to be seen. But it's an interesting report that picked up that kind of puts to bed that, we're not going to have a 250, 300 horsepower electric tractor. It's just not practically possible.
Well, if we weave our way into this week's news, the European Parliament have backpedaled on the banning of petrol and diesel cars by 2035. So I dare say the UK government will follow suit shortly. The all-electric Ford Ranger in the States has had a 4-year production run and they've canned it. So the euphoric rush towards electric is just slowing down a bit politically, which in turn is giving the indicators to the manufacturer. I know we're talking about cars, but it's still analogous to our world because it's about engines and access and range, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting chart, and it's got hydrogen as a potential from about 2040 onward sort of thing in a combine harvester. So it's but it discounts electric altogether as a power source.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, it is.
I do think that the Massey combine, if I took my Perkins engine out, there's enough room for batteries in that engine bay, and I only need it to work for about 3 hours a year. So I think we could probably go full on electric, plug-in electric combine on my.
You could have a cable, Andy.
Yeah, actually, I could just have a cable, Kieran, as long as I was careful on the way I went around the field. Do anyone remember that twin-track John Deere thing at Agritechnica about 6 years ago, where when you looked on the promotion photographs, there was a big cable following it down the field? Yeah. Just imagine knocking the disc harrows through that the first time round.
The Soviets had electric tractors, in the 1930s, running from a cable in their state farms. So it's not new.
I think from a client angle, I think many of mine are they're not desperate, but they'll be very keen to sort of have a heavier duty sort of loader that's electric around for the farmyard activities instead of stop starting engines all the time. We've had electric forklifts for ages, years and years and years. Something a bit more robust for loading lorries and just sort of rough terrain around yards would be a nicer thing. So, and I can't remember, somebody else might be able to pipe up now, but there was a company that was doing sort of slide in, slide out battery packs.
Hot swappable.
Yeah, that would be very useful on loaders.
I've seen that with Lindy in a warehouse situation in TJ Morris, which is TK Maxx's warehouse. They have 40 or 50 electric forklift trucks which are running all the time, and they literally have a battery bank, and the forklift truck swings in and stops, presses a button, and it automates, like on a cassette system, will pull out one battery from the forklift truck, stick it in the charger, take the other one out, slap it in, and off they go again. So the tech's there. It's just in a warehouse.
I've seen various concepts over the years on that thing. A lot of people have played around with that, but I think when you get into bigger machines, it's just that physical size of the battery pack that you're dealing with, and cost.
Certainly, when you look at JCB's cost-benefit analysis for electrifying far-from-home machinery, they said, look, we can take a fast track, and if you want it to do an 8-hour duty cycle, it's going to cost 4 times as much and weigh 3 times as much.
I think I've said it before. The small machines up to 3 or 4 ton yard-based EV works a treat. Brilliant. Charges at night, use it in the day. Stock farms, little world loaders, all that good stuff. And the problem has always been around this mid-range and big stuff. Is where do we go with it? And I think diesel is here for a long, long time yet. And I think we listened to Class doing a presentation on B100 biofuels. They're invested in the future. Diesel is still there, and there's people developing diesel engines still now for big machines. It's not going away. But what will be replaced is the fuel they run on. Run on HVO or whatever.
As you say, it will be a different oil, which has not necessarily been dug out of the ground from dead dinosaurs, to coin somebody else's popular phrase. I nearly had to hit the bell then, by the way. So autonomy, alternative fuels. I wanted to be a stick in the mud northerner here. And I remember several decades ago being at an IAgrE conference at the Royal Agricultural University, and one of the speakers was a man called Malcolm Crabtree, who was the then director of Leckford, which is Waitrose's farm. And I remember as a fresh-faced 25-year-old saying to Malcolm Crabtree, what will agriculture look like in 25 years' time? And here we are, 29 years later, thinking, and he said it will look very similar to how it looks today. And the point he was making is change is slow. And, we always come back with a spring in our step from Agritechnica talking about technology and looking at the things we've seen. The reality is it will take a long time before a lot of the things which we've seen gather enough traction to get in the field and deliver value to farmers, if they do at all.
Well, that's what struck me.
Examples. Sorry, Kieran. I've just seen some examples, particularly up in Killington, where it's going backwards, not forwards.
Clive, the listeners can't see the photograph of my massive 506 combine. That's all I'm going to say. Chris, you were saying, I'm expecting some intelligent insight from down under in comparison to Mr. Butler from Yorkshire.
What interested me was so much stuff that, that's cool. And it's still proof of concept. Everything was still proof of concept at Agritechnica. They're all dipping their toe in, but nobody's sort of getting there. And just going back to the Zoom line, I thought this is a great idea, but you'd be a brave person to buy one of those and try and get spare parts when it broke down.
It's fine, Chris, because the cost of them, you could have 3 of them sat there, 2 for spares. Well,
one of the chap who runs a UK branch of a German harvesting company, he was talking to a UK customer about the Zoom Lion electric hybrid combine, and he'd said exactly that. The manufacturer's representative said, well, what if it breaks down? He said, look, it's a third of the cost of a, for the sake of argument, a Lexion, just to narrow it down a bit. And he said, I could have 3 of them. He said, so when I've broken the first one, I'll just get the next one out of the shed and off I go. And that's going to become a compelling argument for a lot of growers, irrespective of dealer backup, because if you've done away with all those drive lines, you've got rid of all, and we all have enjoyed taking the big belt off on the side of a Class Dominator 25 or 30 years ago, as we've all got the skin knuckles to prove it. It's not a nice experience. Now, if you've replaced all those belts, all those drive lines, all those universal joints with an electric cable and an electric motor, which effectively, if you've got the spec of that motor, you can get off the shelf from somewhere, it really narrows it down. And that case in point is going to come to fruition at some point in the future, where a marketplace will start to vote with its feet because profitability dictates it. I don't think we're there yet. But it's an interesting view on the future.
As an engineer looking at that combine with its hybrid drives, though, it was, it just makes you think, if you look at even a brand new X9, other combines are available. It's still full of belts, pulleys, bearings, chains, idlers, and all gubbins that you'd see on a thrashing machine from 100 years ago. It's the same stuff. But those drive lines are cheap, readily available, high efficiency. You don't lose much efficiency with a chain drive. But it does make you look at the way it's packaged and how you can do things different. And they've got technology in electric motors. And nobody's going to say electric motors are unreliable, because if you go into any factory in horrendous environmental conditions, electric motors are buzzing away quite happily. So it does make you think. And if they've got availability of that sort of componentry at a good cost base, why not use it? And it opens up the packaging of a combine.
And I think the purpose of that Zoomlian combine, as far as I'm concerned, was to plant the seed in a global grower's mind to go, yeah, you could do this. Because we're sat in having this conversation now, quite sensibly going, yeah, all right, it's not a brand I'm familiar with. We know they're a manufacturer. And going back to your point, Charlie, 10 years ago, everything which came out of China, you think, it's a bit shonky. They just needed to buy an angle grinder and take the corners off and paint it a little bit better. And it still looked like some bad Lego did a lot of it. But that's not the case now. And you could squint and go, well, that could have been made in Iowa, or that could have come from Fargo. And that's, a customer's starting to think that. Customers are starting to think about those thought processes. And particularly when you start to think about tariffs in certain parts of the world, there's going to be an eye-opener for manufacturers and for customers. And it's becoming if you think about high energy density things like forage harvesting under the Prime 1, running a grass mower, did you see that the power harrow on the back of the Kuhn's Carl had an electric drive? So they had an electric motor on the power harrow, and they took an electric drive straight off the autonomous tractor.
I mean, it was something John Deere were playing with maybe 10 or 15 years ago, wasn't it, with the electrically powered implements, and it's never just got going, has it yet? But it may come. It may come.
Yeah. Right. I'm claiming the Zoomlion combine as my standout technology from Agritechnica. Who wants to go with theirs?
For me, it was the Kubota UV light boosting technology to ward against fungicides in crops.
Okay.
It's been used currently in vineyards, but they're thinking it can run on to other things, maybe cereal crops, maybe potatoes, that sort of thing. So I thought I spent a lot of time on the Kubota stand, and they're kind of calculating how that is made available to the customer. So I thought that was quite good. I didn't talk to Harty about it, but it was good, interesting to talk to some people about that.
Yeah, and as you say, using UV light, I mean, what's other than dealing with the fungal infection, it's got zero harm. Yes, there's an energy requirement for it, but I dare say that compares favourably to whatever you'd normally put in the can, from the can into the sprayer.
That's always going to be the challenge, is that a fungicide and a crop sprayer are a fairly cheap operation at the moment. And so that's the challenge to this type of technology, is to make it as effective, which is probably going to be a challenge, and as cheap, if not cheaper, preferably.
Yeah. You haven't got the societal acceptance issues, though, that you've got with AgCam.
No, you haven't. No. So, you could go straight on, and your major food processors would love it, as would they love the electronic weeding, because you're dealing with the weeds and you're not harming the crop. Or
with the root wave, with Garford's root wave, for instance. Yeah. Anyone else got a standout technology from Agritechnica?
Like potentially the Stenon soil sampler, the sort of German make, using spectroscopy of NRI, sort of UV invisible light. Just potentially the potential of that, if it actually worked, to go around the farm instead of having to pay for grid sampling, you actually go around, you push it into the ground, and GPS reference where you are. It then sort of tells you your pH, your pK, nitrates, etc. And then it'll make a map up of across a heat map of what your different levels are. I thought that potentially, if it worked, would be amazing.
It's an instantaneous snapshot as well, Chris. So there's no sending off to a lab. There's no 10-day lag. There's none of the, you can bang it in and go, and by the time you finish the field, you've actually got the map, haven't you?
Yeah, and you don't need to. It's not like I'll do it once every 4 or 5 years. It costs too much. You just go back all the time, just check, put that fertilizer on, see what it's done.
Yeah,
the potential
see how dynamic it is.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's the thing I liked about it as well. Is I was trying to get hold of them to bring it to New Zealand, and they said, "Yeah, we'll have to calibrate it up for your soils," which I thought, well, that's always a good sign. The fact they're not just trying to get you on, they actually realise, they acknowledge that it's going to take a year or so of soil testing, etc., at labs to get the thing calibrated up. But if it did work, I think it's got such potential.
No, I think that's fascinating, Clive.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I don't know what really stood out. I mean, there was some interesting innovation. Some of it we saw a couple of years. No, last time Agritechnica was on, around soil labs and different technologies there. I'm not sure what really stood out as being something that I think that's going to revolutionise my life. There was certainly an influx of AI coming into bits and pieces, but there was nothing I thought that was really groundbreaking that I hadn't seen before, really. I agree with Chris, the Stellon stuff was interesting. I've seen that before, but that's, there's a definite movement to that sort of technology of NAR, smarter sensors, that sort of thing, offering both soil, crop and grain potential for different mapping and measurement systems. But I'm not sure, I don't know whether I trust them yet or not.
Yeah.
But then you could say with all of that is what you benchmarking it against anyway, because is it accurate in the first place? So you've got to have a measurement you can interpret and develop from, whether it's right or wrong in some respects.
But whether it's comparative or it's absolute, yeah. I couldn't help but notice as well, in certain of the OEM halls, there were things which looked very much like they'd had fairy liquid bottles stuck on the side of them and reminded us somewhat of K9 from Doctor Who in the 1970s, but the sort of crop spraying version of K9. And I remember looking at them thinking, it's like a bad A-level project. Without wishing to name and shame. Kieran?
I mean, similar camp to Clive. Really, it was quite tricky. Chris's choice was a good one, and I also saw what Harry was talking about on Kubota, and both good shouts on those. I was there for certain reasons to find things and find solutions for clients going forward. So, can I have two, Andy? Can I have two?
Yeah, you can have two. You can have two, Kieran.
I was, and Charlie, I bored Charlie to tears, but good job he was there because he is a very good ploughman, so he helped me. Is it the Boo Knot?
The shallow plough.
Boo
shallow plough.
Yeah,
shallow plough.
I'm waiting for my invitation to a field trip in France.
Absolutely, Charlie.
To study it. Yeah,
I have emailed them, but no reply as yet. So if they're listening, please reply. That was the only shallow plough I could actually find that I thought was sensible. Talking about going back to your conversation all around, history repeats itself, Andy. Going back to ploughing could be more of a mainstay.
You do know shallow ploughing is a thing in Cumbria because we only have 3.5 inches of topsoil. Therefore, we've only ever been able to shallow plough.
But when you get your 500 horsepower Zoom Leon, you'll be going at 10 inches.
Well, I'll be able to plough uphill as well as down.
Absolutely. So that was good. That looked a feasible machine, which was good. But also, on the health and safety aspect, which I'm sure has been around for a while, but it's the first time I've actually seen it, was both on the Manitou and I believe the Merlot loaders, the identification cameras on the back, picking out objects. So, health and safety on farm and movement of people is crucial. And even though people might be wearing high vis, I find that if you're wearing high vis every single day on the farm, people get a little bit complacent to it because it's a norm. it becomes the norm. And loaders are getting bigger. Visibility can be a bit sketchy on some of them. So I thought that was very simple but very neat and effective, and everyone should have one.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and it's instead of relying on the operator to see, because as the machines get bigger, the potential for blind spots gets bigger. Having a system which, and I dare say, using AI. We haven't talked that much about AI yet, have we? Today we ought to talk about data a little bit. We ought to, but having a system using AI to recognise shapes, to recognise people, is a good thing.
Yeah.
So I quite agree. Charlie, did you give us a standout?
Yeah, I mean, I've also got a couple, and funnily enough, one was Kieran's just picked up on it. Is that I was going to mention reverse cameras on those machines, but we've talked about that. But so I'll go back to Zoomlion as one. So I sat in a ZF presentation on an electric transaxle that they've been developing and concepting for a 100 kilowatt tractor, which is fantastic. And ZF are a very well regarded company. Lots of tractors use ZF powertrains. But then you walk out into the halls of Agritechnica and then you go onto the Zoomlion stand, and they've got probably a 300 kilowatt EV rear axle, transaxle that's installed in a tractor and already running.
And you can go buy one.
It's probably not got the robustness of ZF, but it's in there running, and they are definitely ahead of the game on that front. So that's one standout. But the other thing I do like. Simple things that make people's life easier, and I'll come back to Kuhn's time sensing. I just think that's such a simple idea, and that's cheap. Those Bluetooth tags are cheap as chips.
Yeah,
and it's something that's a real time saving thing for somebody, whether it's an autonomous tractor or a 9RX dragging a big cultivator in the prairies. It's got its value. That
let's have a quick fire wrap up now about what we think we will see in Agritechnica in 2 years' time. Just to and I'll seed the ground by saying out of 2,800 exhibitors, I believe 650 of them were Chinese this time. Just as a throwaway, so we can all go, next time it's going to be Agritechnica brackets Chinese edition. But what do we think we're going to see? What would we like to see?
I think we'll see Zoomlion with a whole hall.
Yeah. A lime green hall.
I we jest about it, but I think, if I was a European manufacturer, I would be very concerned about what those guys are up to, because they are moving ahead fast. And you've only got to look at, I for years and years and years, I looked at Kubota tractors in Agritechnica, and I've watched them get better and better and better. And I remember reading an article from their CEO years ago, and they absolutely had their sights on John Deere. Now, I know they're nowhere near that with a big arable tractor yet, but the quality of a Kubota tractor now is pretty good, and they make some fantastic excavators. So if they can make a good excavator, I'm sure they can make a good tractor, Yeah. So and the Chinese are pretty good at what they do. They can execute some high quality stuff. It'd be interesting to see where they go in the future.
Chris,
probably more. I think more the AI side of things, more stuff like the Soil Essentials Sky system with the AI cameras rather than green on brown or green on green.
Decision support.
Weed ID, a lot more of that sort of stuff I'd like to see, and hopefully see more of that. And stuff that you can tie into stuff you've already got, so you can use with existing technologies like your drones, the RTK drones. You can actually put more imagery and software into that side of things as well. I think that's something I'm hoping for.
Clive?
I'd agree with what Charlie was saying, really. I think the sentiment that ignore the Chinese at our peril. I think there's some very clever guys there doing some very clever developments, becoming very mainstream and being taken seriously by some of the big OEMs. I mean, we saw CHC, weren't they embedded into or being offered as a retrofit platform on New Holland? Not sure whether that was there or whether I made that up or not, but certainly
it's on the record now, Clive. That's fine.
Yeah, certainly. certainly from the perspective of buying Chinese tractors and Charlie's comments around Kubota and how that's improved, I would be nervous about what a 5-year-old second-hand Zoomline combine might be like. You see how some of the plastic corrodes on cables and things with some of the cheap wiring you can buy. The last thing I'd want on an expensive machine like that, or a machine like that, is the battery, is the cables giving way and having to replace them all.
What about as long as you've got the RS catalogue, Clive? Surely you'll be fine. Macklin will keep it going.
You see the problem the railways have with people pinching copper. I don't know whether that'll become a thing.
Well, that's a fair comment.
So I don't know. In terms of what I think we'll see in the future, I think we'll see more automation. I'm not sure whether it will all be autonomous, but I think certainly driver assist and the ability to make the operator more productive or more consistent, so a less skilled operator perhaps more skillful, or an operation done more skillfully with automation as a result. That's creeping into combines now with cruise control type systems on them. I'm not sure they're quite there yet, but I'm pretty sure that's going to come at a pace with AI. I think other automation systems and that opportunity we've got as an industry to improve the resolution of what we do. I think that's, it's always been one of my beefs, and you'll be ringing the bell in a minute, but I'm concerned that I am concerned that as we get bigger and we mechanise more, we do lose that attention to detail. And I think anything that allows us the opportunity to get down to better attention to detail will have a big impact.
Harry?
I was just gently impressed by some of the autonomous weeding vehicles, some of the autonomous machines, and maybe tractor-mounted machines that could identify the weed, green on green weed, and deal with it there and then. I'm not sure. I know everyone wanted to have an autonomous thing on their stand, and some of these machines, I think, was it Krone that had an autonomous tractor with a full mowing set on it. I just wonder where the bigger cabless autonomous machines are going to go, because if you've got anyone on the farm, they kind of like driving tractors, and it's
quite good at it.
And very good at it, and it's kind of a safe vibration, quiet place to be. And so if you've got a skilled member of staff and you say, I've got this new machine and you don't need to drive it anymore, you can go off and do some mundane thing in front of a laptop. I don't know that that's going to really take off. The machines that take care of crops autonomously, I think, has got a lot of possibilities. But it's interesting where the bigger autonomous machines that just take the driver out. And of course, a big, 300-400 horsepower tractor, the person in the seat is not that big a cost overall. It's the machine is the bigger cost. So yes, you could use them 24 hours. Then there's health and safety implications in that, and what do you do when you're moving the thing overnight and it comes to the end of the field and has to sit there and you have to come out to it and move it. So it's a very much a case of watch this space. I'm very interested in where the autonomous weed and disease control stuff will go. I don't know where the autonomous standalone tractor will be heading in 2 to 5 years' time.
If I was going to take a punt, what I would say is a lot of the mainstream manufacturers will just embed the autonomy stuff behind the button with the steering wheel on. So what you will find is that, because if you had a choice to say, actually, I'm going to spend £300,000 on ag seed, which is 200 horsepower now, or I can spend £300,000 on a 200 horsepower CNH AGCO-based machine, Deere-based machine, which still has a cab and still has a seat, but I can use autonomy level 2, autonomy level 3, autonomy level 4, because it's got all the same sensors on it. I think if you've got skilled operators on your farm, you might go, do you know what, guys? I'm going to get the autonomous 8R Deere rather than the ag seed, because I can still use it the way I'm used to using a tractor. And it's like an easy way in, a bit like auto steering guidance. Charlie, you've got your hand up.
Just a quick comment on that. The big autonomous cabless machines I don't subscribe to at all. And I think, if you, in terms of investing in that asset, you can't sweat the asset, can you? If you take that cab off, you've made that machine purely autonomous. You can't use it for anything else. You leave the cab
And
on.
if you leave the cab on, you can drive it to the next field.
You can have your autonomous 9RX doing some autonomous work, and also you can use it on other jobs as well with a driver.
Bale spike.
You can sweat the asset, can't you?
The new market for you in the future, then, Charlie.
Sorry?
It's a new business line for you in the future, is a retrofit cab.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I thought you were going to say retrofit autonomy. Because if you think about steering systems, we've had retrofitted steering systems. Now it's pretty much on
we've got Tim. I think tractor implement management as well, Charlie.
Yeah, I think you'll get retrofit autonomous kits soon, won't you? I mean, people are doing that already, aren't they?
Yeah, that's happening, Charlie.
Yeah.
I think the interesting point here is that we've already mentioned it. We're talking about buying an autonomous 8RX, which would be lovely, but Zoom Leon are going to come in and undercut John Deere without John Deere even noticing.
And the autonomy will be native because it's in the Zoom Leon app, which is probably in the App Store now, and we haven't noticed it. Actually, it won't be in the App Store because Trump will have shut the App Store down for them. But it will be in the Google Store, won't it, on Android?
But there's just a chance that you can price equipment out of the market because it's not bringing extra efficiency. It's still a tractor. You're taking the driver out of the cab. You're not going to make the driver redundant. So the overall cost to business is gently going up rather than down.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Kieran, did you want to just give your final two penneth before we wrap up?
It's all really good sort of final chats about this autonomy thing. And I'm with Charlie and Harry and the rest of the team here that technology goes wrong an awfully lot. And the connectivity on farms is horrendous. Yes, it's getting better. I've got one in my vehicle, which is helping in my truck. But to have that embedded, as you said, Andy, I think we need the ultimate flexibility on farm. We will still have staff. They might be trained in different things in the future, but we still need the ability to jump on a seat and do it ourselves when the technology goes wrong, because it will.
So rather than some kind of Betamax VHS argument going on here, we're actually looking at a evolution. We're looking at a gradual change rather than a disruptive revolution, which certain manufacturers are pushing really, really hard at the moment because it suits their business case, whereas the customer's sitting scratching their chin. I actually think at this point, gentlemen, I'm going to thank you all and I'm going to press stop. So thank you to Charlie Nicklin. Thank you, Charlie.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you, Chris Smith, all the way from breakfast time in New Zealand. Really appreciate that. And a good 13 hours ahead of us. So it is simultaneously Thursday night and Friday morning while we're recording this, depending on where you are in the globe. So that's fantastic. Thank you, Chris.
No problem. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, team.
And from the equally glamorous location of Northamptonshire, thank you to Harry Henderson.
Yeah, actually, Warwickshire, even more glamorous.
Kieran, thanks to you down in the Cotswolds.
Welcome. Thank you.
And thanks to Clive Blacker, Black in the 1970s.
Don't be rude about the Pod Zone County.
The People's Republic of Yorkshire. And speaking of the 1970s, the 1950s in Cumbria, where I am. So I've been your host for the Landwards podcast, Andy Newbold. I'd like to say thanks once again for our participants. I have really, really, really enjoyed that. I am going to press stop. So thank you, over and out. Everyone gets to say thank you and goodbye now.
Cheers, thank you very much.
For more information, visit www.IAgrE.org. Landwards, the podcast for the land-based engineering community, brought to you by the Institution of Agricultural Engineers.